sentient beings may attain Buddhahood. From my heart I take refuge in the three jewels.
In order
that
that all
sentient beings may attain Buddhahood. From my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood. From my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. Whatever the virtues of the many fields of knowledge, all are steps on the path of omniscience. May these arise in the clear mirror of intellect. O Manju Shri, please accomplish this. Oh, good evening. Welcome to part 5 of our exploration of Shamatha Vipassana in the Mahamudra tradition of Tibet, the Kagyu tradition of Tibet. We have, there are 3 people who said they couldn't join tonight. That'll join in later. Morgan, Debbie, and Eric Kramer. So, I sent out a revised syllabus to add the opportunity. We should go through the text at the back of the book by Wangchuk Dorje, the Ninth Karmapa, Dispelling the Darkness of Ignorance. And we'll still get a couple of review classes in, which I think would be good. I would appreciate that. Okay, so we're in the section of the text on the resultant of the practice. Which is the way realization develops through sustaining meditation. If you look in the outline of the text at the beginning on page Roman numeral XX, yeah, that's right, that's where we are. The way realization develops through sustaining meditation, division of the development of realization. How the realizations of the 4 yogas develop. Okay, so we're on page 421. Last time's syllabus. Here we go. 421. Okay, cool. The way realization develops through sustaining meditation, and this has 3 parts, beginning with the divisions of the development of realization. If we cultivate well those meditations on Mahamudra that were explained, presumably earlier in the text, without deviating or going astray, it is said that the realization of the 4 yogas will develop sequentially in keeping with the 3 ways realization arises, which correspond to the type of practitioner we are. Since as practitioners we are divided into those whose previous training has been superior, moderate, or lesser, we are classified as instantaneous, bypassing, or gradual types. I don't think bypassing is used in the sense that it is often these days as a pejorative spiritual bypassing. But we'll see what he says about it. The instantaneous way of development for most of you here other than me. First during shamatha, or while being guided in vipassana, or when the pointing out instructions are given. Understandings, experiences, and realizations, which is the famous triad, occur simultaneously. What arises instantaneously may be just one-pointedness, or it may be up to freedom from elaborations, up to one taste, or even up to non-meditation. It is explained that what develops is stable. It occurs in the same way that when sunlight reaches a canyon, the fog there dissipates and the soil and rocks become warm all at the same time. So, just like that analogy of like lighting a match in a cave that has been dark for millions of years, it instantly lights up the cave. It doesn't like take longer because it's been dark for longer in there. The bypassing way of development, understandings, experiences, realizations, and the four yogas arise subtly without the latter phases necessarily being based on the earlier ones. It is said that this development is not stable, that there is considerable fluctuation. It is like, for example, the sun appearing and disappearing between clouds. Nevertheless, it is taught that if these practitioners meditate with determination, practice in solitude for a long time, stay in retreat, arouse devotion towards their gurus, and supplicate ardently, they will achieve stable realization. It is also explained that if they are unable to meditate for a long time and do not stabilize realization in this lifetime, genuine realization will occur in the bardo. That's plan B, right? The bardo. Prepare for plan B. The gradual way of development, understandings, experiences, and realizations in the four yogas arise sequentially. Once the earlier ones are stabilized, the latter ones develop. It is said that progress is slow. Although the essence of mind is seen slightly, the objects of abandonment are not given up right away, and the remedies are not mastered. The analogy is the sun rising over the horizon. As soon as it appears, it does not heat the entire earth or melt all that is frozen. It is said that if both the latter two types arouse devotion and determination, the vital point of blessings will cause them to become like the instantaneous type without any difficulties. It is also said that realizations can occur in a variety of ways, such as realization happening at unpredictable times, to be followed by conclusiveness, or realization occurring, but there being no certainty or assessment of it because it is not recognized. Therefore, it is important to consult with gurus and experienced fellow practitioners. For me, the most interesting part of that was this idea that you could get, realization, which is the third in this triad he's about to explain, and that could be unstable. You would think that that would be sort of like the stabilization of understanding and experience, but he implies that it's not. Okay, so the difference between understanding, experience, and realization, regardless of the phase of our spiritual practices, high or low, understanding is when an abstract idea of the object of that practice arises correctly as a mental object, and we have inferential understanding. So this is the typical description of inferential valid cognition. An inferential valid cognition is based upon an abstract idea or a generally characterized phenomena, what in Tibetan is called dunchik, a meaning generality. It's the more technical translation of the term. It rises correctly, meaning it's when you go through the valid cognition system, that means it is both unmistaken and unmistaken and and what is the other one? Unmistaken and correct, or something like that. It has two qualities. Experience, so that's an intellectual, conceptual understanding, and that the interesting thing is that that's universally in this tradition considered to be essential to progress to the later phases of this. Experience is when something similar to the actual object of practice, meaning not the abstract idea, but a specifically characterized phenomenal experience, phenomenally specifically characterized, is experienced, is probably grounded in experience and experienced right within awareness. Something similar to the actual object of practice is properly grounded in experience and experienced right within awareness. This phrase, similar to the actual object, to the actual meaning, might be more an alternative way of understanding this sense. Experience is when something similar to the actual meaning is properly grounded in experience. Something similar, not the actual, but something similar. Realization is when, without being mistaken about the actual object of practice, there is direct realization of and conclusiveness about the fundamental state. So that's the general progression, going from an intellectual, conceptual understanding to a completely stable, non-conceptual embodiment, let's say. As the Exalted Sampagari states, understanding involves examination and analysis. Vitarka and vichara. Experience in Sanskrit, experiences of the highs and lows of bliss and clarity. It's interesting they single those two out from the three experiences that arise in meditation. The highs and lows of bliss and clarity. Realization is the recognition of the abiding state. The so-called mother clear life. Right? Their differences are comparable to the following analogy. Through hearing stories about a place like Bodh Gaya in India, an abstract image of it arises. Has anyone here been to Bodh Gaya? Yeah, so it's a similar thing. You know, that's where something big in our tradition happened. Any ideas? Yeah, Mary Beth. What happened in Bodh Gaya?
I think I actually might have been there, maybe. Near, it's
Made a
near
big impression on you.
well, it's near Varanasi in India.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah,
And
what?
that certainly made a big impression on me.
Varanasi was a wild place. Oh my God.
Yeah. But I think it's where the Buddha sat through the night and then became enlightened. Yeah.
That's what we hear. That's what they tell us. Yeah, the Bodhi tree is there, an actual offshoot of the original Bodhi tree. The original Bodhi tree pieces, branches of it were taken to Sri Lanka, and the original Bodhi tree died because it was not kept up. And then they took branches from the version that made it to Sri Lanka and brought it back and planted it there, and that's what we have there today. And it's a very powerful place. So now we've told you about it, so those of you who haven't been there, or Mary Beth, who doesn't remember it crystal clear, have a general idea of that. Once we actually go there, we see its overall layout, right? There's this Mahabodhi temple that you've all seen pictures of. It's like this, like a big obelisk. It's square, and it looks like it has writing on the sides. And then there's the tree, and there's lots of people around the tree waiting to collect the leaves, the Bodhi leaves that fall off the tree, and chanting and so forth. When we have detailed certainty about the way things are there, we have full comprehension. It is taught that regardless of the phase of our spiritual practice, when it arises clearly, right within awareness, that is experience. When we rest one pointedly in that very state without being distracted, that is meditative equipoise. When, through looking with discerning progeny, we are convinced that nothing, be it the object seen or the seer, exists with any essence, that is realization. So it's not just any object, but it's a progression of the relationship to the abiding state. It's not like we could say, well, we have understanding, experience, and realization of suffering. We all have that, right? We all understand it. We've had glimpses of it. And we've all had visceral experiences of it. But here we're talking about something different. Rob?
So what I'm getting from this is there's all kinds of activity. There's just no actors.
At the Bodhi, that's right.
In general, I mean that's what with the practice.
The actors disappear.
Yeah, like the meditator disappears,
That's right.
but the meditation still exists.
In what sense?
Well, that's sort of what produces the realization that there's no meditator. I mean, there's activity, but there's no, it's all essenceless. It's anonymous.
So how could there be meditation if there's no meditator?
Yeah, well, how's there seeing without a seer? Right? I mean, there's an eyeball, but so there's vision, but there's no person in that eyeball.
Yes. So that, but it is, aren't what we're talking about is like the progression from the first selflessness, which is selfless of person, to the second one, selflessness of phenomena. So first we
Yes.
realize.
So the two together, it's not like there's nothing. It's just that it's not, it's flux. It's something else immediately.
It's hard to say quite what it is. If you say
Yeah.
what it is, then you return to
Then
reification.
you've reified it again.
Yeah, yeah. That's why Vimalakirti was silent when they asked him to describe primordial wisdom. And that's what Rob's doing. There it is. Good evening, Christopher. Welcome. You'll have to stay late because you were late to class. You need to.
Oh, okay. Well, I was late too, so it all works out.
Right. Mr. Dillon. Cynthia.
Did anyone, you or anyone else by any chance, listen to the Wisdom Dharma chat yesterday?
No.
was-
Who?
Okay, let's see if you can remember. It was Mingyur Rinpoche and Robert Thurman.
Oh my God! What a
Yeah, right.
combination.
It was really weird.
Did he get a word in edgewise?
They both spoke. Actually, no, I mean, I think the interviewer manages to, he does a good job. But it was weird, I must say. It's one of those. Robert is quirky, and it was odd. But the reason I brought it up is because of the topic we're talking about here. There was one point in it that, from what I was hearing, Robert was sort of suggesting, he has lots of ways of kind of personalizing things and retranslating things and all sorts of other things. But in this case, I'm not sure which of the two triads they were talking about first, but the sort of hearing, contemplating, and meditating triad, and then this triad that we're talking about here, which is the understanding, experience, and realization one. The weird thing is, if I heard him right, I think he was talking about, I guess they must have started with the hearing, contemplating, meditating. So he was kind of taking issue with that triad and trying to kind of reframe it as if, and to make the third one, he was kind of trying to make it hearing, meditating, and realization. So it's almost like trying to merge the two triads together, which I thought was really kind of weird, because each of them has a unique purpose and value. And I didn't really get any, sense of what the benefit was. But I'm just mentioning it because it was kind of odd, and feel free to
Yeah, yeah.
watch it if you want to.
And did Mingyur Rinpoche imply that they correlate? Was there any sense of the two systems correlating?
I don't think I'm not sure I don't know that they were actually thinking about it the way I am. It was because as I said, they were I think they were really only talking at that time about one of I think it was about the hearing, contemplating, meditating one. So they really weren't, I don't remember if Mingyur Rinpoche brought up and kind of, I can't remember whether he responded and did any kind of offset to that. I'll have to go back and look at it. Anyway, just thought it was kind of a weird thing. The idea of trying to collapse the two together did not seem like a great idea.
Indeed. Oh my God. Okay. It is also taught that regardless of the phase of our spiritual practice, when it arises clearly right within awareness, that is experience. When we rest one pointedly in that very state without being distracted, that is meditative equipoise. When, through looking with discerning prajna, we are convinced that nothing, be it the object seen or the seer, exists within the essence, that is realization. So here you have understand, arises within awareness, and then you have meditation, and then you have prajna.
So here, the three are experience, meditative equipoise, and realization.
Yeah.
Not the understanding.
Yeah.
It's just more description of steadiness of experience.
That's right. So they changed the second one. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. The Exalted Gampopa explains the differences between experience and realization. Vibrant clarity is an experience. Not being distracted from that is stillness. Realization is when prajna sees that no essence exists. So we experience vibrant clarity. We meditate on that, not being distracted. And then we have certainty that nothing exists, as Robert was talking about earlier. And Pakmadrupa asked, what is the difference between experience and realization? Gampopa replied, experience does not transcend being a mental object like the sun in the midst of clouds. Bliss, clarity, and non-conceptuality are sometimes heightened, sometimes reduced, and sometimes still. By sustaining those without fixation, the stains of the mind are purified, and realization starts to dawn. Realization is when the non-duality of appearances and mind are realized right within the mind. That continues in a state of luminosity. When there is no object of meditation and no meditator, that is said to be the simultaneity of realization and attainment. Seems that that's what Rob was referring to earlier when he was talking about there being no meditator, no meditation. Concerning this, a certain person number 1, Sakya Pandita, says, some say there are 3, experience, understanding, and realization. Experience is inferior, understanding is middling, and realization is best. This requires some examination. If experienced is used to mean having experiences, then all who have minds have experiences. If it is used to mean what is experienced in meditation, then it is present from the lesser path of accumulation through the path of perfection. However, if it is the wisdom of intuitive, reflexive awareness, that experience is only found in noble beings. I have allergies. Understanding and realization are synonymous terms that are of one essence, that is, are identical. They are simply variant translations of one Sanskrit term by the Lotsawas. I guess he's not really into this triad, is he? This is illogical for the following reasons. Excuse me.
It's interesting that he starts right from the very beginning of it, inverting the order of them.
Yeah. Not having seen those three experience, understanding, and realization, referred to as terms denoting what is inferior, middling, or superior. It seems to be a dubious statement, one involving misinterpretations, since it has not been determined that experience is necessarily inferior. It is not necessary to mention the experiences of noble beings and others. However, having mentioned them, it would be appropriate to distinguish the differences between their experiences and realizations. This practice tradition asserts that there are experiences intrinsic to realization, and there is a phase when experiences and realizations are inseparable. If understanding and realization are the same in all instances, many absurd consequences follow. The divisions of the Dharma into that of Scripture and realization must be referred to as the divisions of the Dharma into that of Scripture and understanding. The realizations on the bhumis and past must be referred to as the understandings of those levels, and so on. Since there are reasons for translating a term according to its meaning in a specific context, the Lotsawas and Panditas translated one Sanskrit term differently. Interesting implication that there is one Sanskrit term that's being translated differently.
Yeah, do we know what the Sanskrit and Tibetan words are for these three?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's look them up in our see if it's in our glossary.
Yes, I've heard that sometimes in the translating from Sanskrit to Tibetan, words were kind of made up to try to capture the meaning.
Right, let's see.
I don't see, so I'm in the translation equivalents. I don't see understanding. Let's see if we have experience.
There's realize. Here we go. Under realize, in that same section, the realize in parentheses, it says understand, recognize, know. And then in Tibetan, it's Togpa. So right there, you see that we don't have Sanskrit here, but it does seem to show that realize and understand are being thrown together there.
Which
So
page are you
to
on?
find that I'm on page 675. Maybe we can find the Sanskrit sometime as well and look at all three languages lined up.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
We'll work on that.
I think it's kind of interesting that it's sort of presented linearly when it seems to me it's more of a circle or a spiral, because because understanding is also, isn't that gaining certainty in the view? Or isn't that sort of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But that happens as a result of experience, which then further, you know, strengthens, gaining certainty in the view, which I think gooses the experience until you get to realization, right? I mean, they sort of tag team each other, don't they?
It depends how you use them. In this, in the way that he just described them, he described them in a very linear way.
Although it does depend, if you go back to the beginning of the chapter, it depends on which type of person you are. So it's not always linear. It's really only linear for the third type.
Well, yeah. Well, the first person, it's all at once,
Right.
and the second person, it could be, you know,
Hodgepodge, yeah. Skipping. Interesting.
But it also, the tricky part too is that I think the word experience here and the way we use it in an ordinary sense could be mixed up, in terms of what you're talking about, that yes, in a sense, coming to certainty depends on some kind of experience, but when they're talking about experience, they may be talking, if they're talking more about the Nyam kind of experience, it's a more technical definition of experience as opposed to the general one that we use. So that's another issue.
Well, in this section, experience is Nyam.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, but I think that what Rob was talking about earlier, he was talking about experience, I think, in a more general way. I might be wrong.
I'm talking about bliss and clarity.
Oh, okay.
I because otherwise, once you have a nam, you'd already, you wouldn't need any more understanding. You're like, it's something that needs to, be nurtured in a sense, or clarity around the view needs to happen around that, and for it to be understood properly. This text says so itself later on too, that without context, noms aren't necessarily going to bring you anywhere.
Especially not if you hang on to them.
Right.
So Matthew put something in the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's interesting. It has a lot of different definitions, including conceptual cognition. Parikalpana, which is conceptual, kalpana, abstraction, activity of empirical mind. This is more like understanding, Tokpa. Well, I guess it's all contextual. That's interesting. Okay, so it's only meaningful to the extent that it's helpful, right? In helping us progress on the path. So currently that ability seems to have dissolved in my mind. So let's go on. Let's see, Sakyapandita also says, if clear and unclear thoughts are being referred to as understanding and realization, then say that. So now I understand what this section means, is Tokpa means both conceptual and understand, and can also mean non-conceptual realization. It can mean conceptual parikalpana and also non-conceptual. So that's what he means by clear and unclear. And Tashinamigal says that statement is also illogical for the following reasons. According to him, the difference between clear and unclear thoughts must be the difference between understanding and realization. And yet that contradicts what he said above about them being synonyms. It is very absurd to refer to unclear thoughts as realization, which is what must be concluded according to the order of the terms in his composition. His statement also means that all realizations of non-conceptual wisdom must be asserted to be conceptual. I think these two guys should just work out their differences separately, and we shouldn't really get involved too much in it. How the realizations of the four yogas develop, this has three parts, beginning with the way the subject of the four yogas is presented in the sutras and the tantras. The descent into Lanka, famously known as the Lanka Avatara. In Sanskrit, the Lanka Avatara Sutra gives a presentation of 4 yogas. The Bhagavan said, Mahamati, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas endowed with 4 qualities are yogins and yoginis of the great yoga. What are the 4? To meditate upon appearances as one's own mind, to abandon the view that phenomena arise, abide, and perish, to realize that external entities are non-entities, that is, do not exist, and lastly, 4th, to hold the intention to internalize the wisdom of the noble ones. Mahamati, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas endowed with those 4 qualities are yogins and yoginis of the great yoga. So in this sutra, there's a dialogue between the Buddha, referred to as the Bhagavan, and a great bodhisattva, Mahasattva, named Mahamati, who asked the Buddha like 55 questions or something. It comes through with a big list of questions. Do you have a minute? And the Buddha goes and answers every one of them, and they have a little dialogue about many of them. I will explain those one by one. Meditating on appearances as mind describes the yoga of one-pointedness, because that is in keeping with the qualities of the yoga of one-pointedness. I didn't quite know that beforehand, that one-pointedness meant meditating on appearances as mind. I don't know about you guys. The same text continues, Mahamati. That being so, how do Bodhisattva Mahasattvas become skilled in meditating upon appearances as being their own mind? That's an interesting phraseology, being their own mind. They do so by considering as follows. These 3 realms are simply one's own mind. Mind is devoid of a self and mind. Mind is devoid of mind. It is without movement, and it is free from anything to be adopted or rejected. It is tainted by overly fixating on the latent tendencies of negative propensities, which are conceptual elaborations held throughout beginningless time. It is linked with enjoying the various forms of the 3 realms. Mind appears in keeping with the conceptualizations of the body, possessions, abodes, and beings. The last sentence, mind appears, and mind was added by the translator. It is linked with, it appears in keeping with the conceptualizations. So mind appears in keeping the way that we conceptualize our bodies, possessions, abodes, and ourselves. Abandoning the view that phenomena arise, abide, and perish, the second of the 4, describes the yoga of freedom from elaborations, because that is in keeping with the qualities of the yoga of freedom from elaborations. The same text continues, Mahamati, how do Bodhisattva Mahasattvas abandon the view that phenomena arise, abide, and perish? They do so by considering as follows, just like the arising of illusions or forms in a dream. All entities do not truly come into being because there is no self, no other, not even both self and other from which they arise. Bodhisattvas follow or understand that entities are simply appearances of their own mind, and see that external entities do not exist. Having seen that entities do not exist, they see that the consciousnesses have nothing to engage, and that contradictions are neither a mass, nor do they amass.
That's conditions.
Thank you. Contradictions. Bodhisattvas follow or understand that entities are simply appearances of their own mind, because there is no self, other, nor even both from which they arise. And they see that external entities do not exist. Having seen that entities do not exist, they see that the consciousnesses have nothing to engage, and that conditions are neither a mass nor do they amass. So in the early Abhidharma, conditions mass, they go to mass every Sunday, and they do a mass, a mess. They see that the three realms arise from the conditions of thoughts, because they do not observe any external or internal phenomena, and they see the absence of any nature. They turn away from the view that phenomena arise, realizing the nature of phenomena to be an illusion, and so forth. So the so forth there, the one thing that I do understand about this excerpt is that the so forth there refers to the other of the either 8 or 12 analogies for emptiness, which is like the dewdrop and the rainbow and a mirage and so forth, right? They achieve patience in relation to unborn phenomena. So patience is, in this case, unborn phenomena would indicate the 8th bodhisattva level. So the second yoga is realizing, abandoning the view that phenomena arise, abide, and perish. Because there is no way that phenomena arise. They don't arise from self, other, or both. In the first one, the logic was that mind is devoid of self, without movement. Okay? Realizing that external entities are non-entities, that is, do not exist, describes the yoga of one taste, because that is in keeping with the qualities of the yoga of one taste. A little bit of a tautology there, it seems. The Lankavatara states, Mahamati, how do bodhisattva mahasattvas become skilled in realizing that external entities are non-entities, that is, do not exist? And this is the usual format, as the Buddha repeats the question in his answer, right? So Mahamati had asked this. They do so by considering as follows: all entities are like mirages, dreams, and floaters. Floaters are the things that float around in your aqueous humor of the eyeball, and were considered to be an analogy for emptiness, because they are an experience of seeing something in a way that it doesn't actually exist, in the same way that we see people and other phenomena as if they actually exist. Also, when you have floaters in your eyes, if you don't understand what floaters are, you think that there's like lines out in space, right? They didn't understand that floaters are actual things. They thought they were just aberrations in the scene. But floaters are actual things. They're seen. It's when a hair gets in your eyeball, and then no, just kidding. It's little like imperfections in the aqueous humor, which is the funny stuff, the funny water in the eyes, aqueous humor.
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
So at the bottom of the paragraph above, it says realizing the abandoning the view in the yoga of freedom from elaboration.
Yeah.
At the end of that, realizing the nature of phenomena to be illusion and so forth, they achieve patience in relation to unborn phenomena. And then in the next one, it's saying they become skilled in realizing that external entities are non-entities. So that seems like the same.
It does. It does to me too. Yeah, it seems repetitive.
But they're different, but it's 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Abandoning the view that phenomena arise, appear, and perish, and then abandoning the idea that entities are entities. There's a little bit of a progression. First is like understanding that entities don't, or logically can't
Yeah.
arise.
And in fact, it says realization. So maybe the
It says that
realization of,
word, yeah, of the
so maybe once you
previous
realize
step.
it, then you're on to the next thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And also, in that last sense where I said patience in relation to unborn refers, usually, my understanding was that it refers to the eighth bhumi, but the yoga of freedom from elaborations does not correlate with the eighth bhumi. It correlates with the path of seeing. So this would be much more of like the culmination of the patience from the path of preparation, where you have those four stages of heat, peak, patience, and highest worldly dharma. So, let's see. All entities are like floaters. All entities are caused by overly fixating on the various latent tendencies of thoughts related to negative propensities, which are conceptual elaborations held throughout beginningless time. Thus they become bodhisattvas who truly see the absence of nature. And if you remember the third yoga of one taste correlates to the stages. Well, we'll see it actually in this course, or in a couple of classes. It correlates to the five paths. But it correlates to basically the bhumis of bhumis 2 through 8 or so, depending on the scheme. Fourth, holding the intention to internalize the wisdom of the noble ones describes the yoga of non-meditation, because that is in keeping with the qualities of the yoga of non-meditation. Mahamati, how do Bodhisattva Mahasattvas hold the intention to internalize the wisdom of the noble ones? They do so as follows. Having achieved patience in relation to unborn phenomena, they abide on the eighth bhumi, because they have internalized the fulfillment of the realization of mind and mentation, the mental consciousness, the five topics, the nature, and the twofold absence of self. They have also attained a mental body. Now, this whole thing of a mental body, let's see what Elizabeth says of this. 13. And by the way, the five topics is not a common list that you might know. It's unique to this sutra. Where are our footnotes? 1388.
I don't think there's anything that really significant there.
Oh, it's just a reference to the text.
Sadly, I think so. I checked a lot of these, and I think they were pretty much.
The first part of the citation found in Moonbeams is not found in the HK recension. What is HK? Hong Kong? The text that follows in Moonbeams is included under the explanation of the second quality Dharma in HK. The Moonbeams citation is identical to one found in Gu Lotsawa's Mirror Illuminating Suchness commentary in the highest continuum, which is Maitreya's text. For information on this, comparisons between the Tibetan translations of that sutra from the Sanskrit and from the Chinese, see Matthew's Direct Path to the Buddha Within. Oh, that's cool. I gotta check that out. So this is something that has come up many times for me, is that the Chinese translation of this sutra is very different, or the version of this sutra in Chinese is very different from the Tibetan version. So the only versions that we currently have of this sutra are from the Chinese. We currently have in English, were translated from the Chinese. So I've tried a number of times to try to find these quotes in the translations and failed. And she helps confirm that. So they're using a different translation of the sutra, a different version of the sutra. and his version is not the same as the one found in HK, which must be one of the main collections of the conjure.
Says it's the Lhasa conjure.
Lhasa H, gotcha. Thank you very much. Lhasa conjure, which is one of the most like authoritative versions of the conjure. There's 4 main ones, and that one is the most widely used. And then, like people, like teachers that quote endlessly from sutras and tantras. It's very hard to often to find those in the sutras and tantras. We've seen this in Longchenpa, when we've gone through Longchenpas, right? And so that she says that it is identical, however, with Gulo Tsawa. So it's sort of like he's taking Gulo Tsawa's version. Anyway, that's not a very important issue.
I have another little question.
The mental body, yeah.
It says having achieved patience in relation to unborn phenomena. Isn't that everything? So just being patience.
Well, all phenomena are unborn.
That's what I'm saying. So,
but for most of us, that's a source of frustration.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what's being pointed out here. Just absolute patience.
Well, that's the result of understanding that phenomena are not produced.
That's a motivation to keep practicing. That I could get to that. Wouldn't that be fantastic?
Fully be patient, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Patient endurance of the uncreated is a common phrase in...
Wait, I'm going to have to give up being grumpy?
Yeah, I'm sorry to say. That's right. Impatient and irritable, both of those things, you're going to have to go. Yeah, you're going to have to, like... That's why being in traffic is a very advanced practice, which I am unequipped for, personally.
I used to pack Krishna Das CDs for my car for waiting at the tunnel so that I wouldn't go crazy.
Yeah, I used to go crazy impatient with traffic, and so now we consider it a practice whenever it happens. It's a little better. But I love that phrase, patience in relation to unborn phenomena. I mean, what can you get from unborn phenomena? You got to be patient with them, but they still don't become born, even if you're patient. They're still unborn.
Very inspiring sentence.
Anyway, they attain the mental body. Okay, similarly, and this is a famous quote that Karl Brunholzl quotes in his tome, The Center of the Sunlit Sky. I should have prepped this beforehand. I wanted to compare his translation. Oh well, I will do that later. So this excerpt presents the stages of what becomes, according to Karl Brunholzl, what then gets codified as the progressive stages of meditation on emptiness, as we know it today through teachers such as Khenpo Soljung Gyamtse Rinpoche, in his wonderful little book by that title, which we're going to do a course on here at the Westchester Meditation Center soon, on Wednesday nights. Okay, so by relying on mind only, step 1, you do not conceive of outer reference. Resting with thusness as your object, you transcend mind alone as well. In other words, you see the emptiness of the mind. First, it's basically the fourfold pointing out, right? All phenomena are mind. Mind is empty. Once you transcend mind alone, you go beyond the absence of appearances. Mind is empty. Emptiness is spontaneously present. It's the Mahamudra pointing out the third one. Once you transcend mind alone, which seems to happen in the second stage. That's what it says. You transcend mind alone. You then go beyond the absence of appearances, which doesn't mean that things then appear, but you go beyond necessarily. Yogins and yoginis who abide in the absence of appearances see the Mahayana. It's a little bit of an elusive instruction, isn't it? Explanations of these verses found in the Stages of Meditation, which is by Kamala Shila, and instructions on Prajnaparamita, which is by Ratnakara Shanti, are in keeping with the meaning of the four yogas. So they interpret these four stages as correlates to the four yogas. And there's that text by Ratnakara Shanti goes through that. Cynthia.
So I just wondered, in terms of the section that you had just gone through with these four statements by the Bhagavan, and then those correlations to the yogas, did other people, I mean, I know I found they were kind of not such a close fit, and I felt like it was a little bit of a strained correlation, at least in some cases. I just wondered whether you also felt that at all.
Well, yeah, I mentioned that like at the first one, I
Yeah,
didn't really have this sense that one-pointedness meant that understanding all appearances to be mind.
exactly.
I thought it
Somehow,
meant like just one-pointed meditation.
yeah. So I noticed that you
So,
commented on it there, and for me, I found that as we went along, like a couple of them maybe sort of worked, but I didn't really feel like the two really aligned all that well. It seemed like one of those things where they could have actually been just two different frameworks that
yeah,
have some overlap, but aren't really meant to be fully correlated.
yeah.
At least the
It
way I see it.
yeah. It certainly seems like that could be the case. If you remind me, I'll send you. There's some articles on. We don't have the translation of the text by Ratnakara Shanti, but there is one or maybe two articles on his fourfold systemization of those stages that might be of interest. Rob.
I have a question. Well, maybe perhaps it means the one-pointedness. Uh, that's an example of gaining certainty in a view. And when you have one-pointedness, that's what you've done.
How does that correlate to understanding all phenomena as
That's just
mind?
an example.
But they present it as like the main thing. It's clearly like the main thing, right?
Yeah, but I mean, there's other things that are main too that you could have certainty on and be one-pointed on, right?
I don't know. They all seem to mention that one.
Yeah, just a question. I was just
Yeah,
wondering.
yeah.
I'm just trying to make the gears fit.
Yeah. Cynthia.
The one other thing I will mention is that when it comes to notes, and I'm not sure exactly where this particular note referred back to. I guess it's still coming up later on, but there was one note that actually did have some kind of interesting content. The one about that was saying referencing to Yangompa, and so there's these different editions of Yangompa, and some of them say that the terminology is used explicitly in the tantras, and then some of them say the exact opposite. There's like a not in there, and so that was one of the more interesting of the notes that made it seem a little bit unclear which meaning was to be taken.
Sort of erodes your confidence in it, doesn't it? Like
A little bit.
when
She
they're
came to
able
a
to explain two opposite statements as working
right.
for you.
Yeah, I guess out of three different translations, two of the three coincided. And I think at the end of the comment, she actually says that that's what she is saying is probably correct. But somehow in what she has in the main text seemed to be the opposite. I don't know. It was a little confusing. I think it's note number 1401, but I think we haven't quite gotten to that yet.
Cynthia, so you're saying that the correlation, are you saying that there's two sets of four?
Well, yes,
And
I
what
think
are they? What? They're the four yogas and four what?
I don't know. I mean, this is the first time
Okay.
I've read these particular words of the Bhagavan, or maybe,
Okay.
I mean, I hadn't read them carefully before, even though I guess
It
I've gone. I
it
just
kind
didn't
of
feel the
sounded
two of
to
them
me like,
You read them
I mean,
before.
I'm
We
probably
went through them
wrong.
in classes, and I remember you talking. No,
Okay. Okay, yeah, okay. I don't remember actually noticing this.
so the four are the four yogas, and then the other four is from this descent into Lanka,
Right.
mass four stages.
4
Pursue,
stages.
pursue,
Oh,
Yeah.
understanding or realization or experience, depending on how you want to
oh.
interpret accomplishment. Let's say. But anyway, let's go on. The Tantra, the great river of the inconceivable secrets of the Ali Kali. Ali Kali is the alphabet, right? Correlates the four samadhis. So this is another interesting scheme in the Mahayana Sutras in various places. There's thousands of different types of samadhis are referenced, but there's a system of four samadhis that are referenced as being like the important ones that have also have a progressive order to them, and they are as follows. Um, Correlates the four samadhis, the four levels of the path of preparation, and from there we know that it's really not the four yogas, even though he says they are, but the four yogas go beyond the path of preparation. So a little confusing, but we know the four levels of the path of preparation, I said them earlier, are heat, peak, patience, and highest worldly dharma. A set of obscure terms that it's hard to understand. And the four samadhi. So through the samadhi of a majestic lion, the majestic lion samadhi. There are these images that are given for these samadhis, which is about as best as we can do. It's like what is the feeling you get from a majestic lion samadhi? Clear cognition, one-pointed, unmoving, and lucid. Okay, so we got the one-pointedness. Awakens from within as reflexively aware wisdom. Once heat is attained, there is mastery over birth. So heat is clearly seems like a reference to the first of the four stages of path preparation. Second, with the illusion-like samadhi, and through the great equipoise, free from elaborations. So the second yoga, the inconceivable samadhi arises as the expressive power. Having attained peak, progress is uninterrupted. So peak is the second of the four, and it's said that at that point, one is non-returning, I think, something like that. Third, through the heroic stride samadhi. What does that mean? The heroic stride, the stride of a hero. It's like you take long steps with great confidence, or leaping over buildings with a single bullet or something. I don't know. The realization of the 10th bhumi arises. Whoa, how did we get to the 10th bhumi if we're still on the path of the preparation? That's confusing. The one taste of the many. Okay, the third yoga, the one taste. The children of the victors of the three times benefit others by stabilizing patience. The suffering of the three realms is dispelled. Fourth, with the Vajra-like samadhi. We've all heard of that, right? Trungpa Rinpoche talks about that a lot, the Vajra-like samadhi that occurs at the end of the 10th bhumi, and it marks the transition from the 10th bhumi to the 11th, or Buddhahood, i.e. complete realization. And through exertion and the practice of non-meditation, immeasurable pure lands of omniscient Buddhas are achieved. That is the unsought, spontaneously existent great level of supreme qualities. And supreme qualities is another way that the fourth of the four stages of the path of preparation is referred to. So it's a confusing scheme. Where was that from? The Tantra, the great river, and inconceivable secrets, so they all call it. Anyway, the two-part refers to the one point that is like the way a river's current flows, or a candle's flame is bound. Yogins and yoginis remain continually in the yoga suchness, day or night. Day and night, that sounds familiar. Like the way a river's current flow. I think Kempo had a
In
saying.
thatness rests the mind, right? That's the end of the line.
Is it? We had to say that, sing that over and over.
Yeah. Da, 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 da.
Rivers, currents. It describes freedom from elaborations. In essence, there are neither forms nor those who see them. There are no sounds and no hearers. And this has no beginning, middle, or end. It is without existence and without nirvana. About one taste, it says meditation is one taste, equality. It refers to non-meditation when it says there is no meditator and no meditation. The great Brahman Saraha teaches one pointedness, cast away thoughts and their objects, and you'll rest like a small child. He refers to freedom from elaborations for those who contemplate suchness, free from a root. Do we know which song of Saraha this is? To one taste, since everything is of equal taste, there is nothing higher than inconceivable wisdom, and to non-meditation, being free from meditative concentration, what could be contemplated? Did anyone look? Are those all from the same text?
Doha for the people is for the one that you asked about, 13.
97.
Yeah, 97 and 98 are both Doha for the people. All four of them are actually
Good,
Doha for the people, yes.
good. At least it's from the same text. That makes it a little more convincing. Okay. We should know, as those references demonstrate, that all teachings in the sutras, tantras, and esoteric instructions on resting evenly in the one-pointed mind are teachings on one-pointedness. All teachings on the absence of arising and freedom from extremes are about freedom from elaborations. All descriptions of equality and the lack of reality are about one taste, and all instructions on being without adopting or rejecting, dispelling or establishing are instructions on non-meditation. The exalted Yongbunpa and others state that the four-yoga process is the dharma of realization of the exalted Dakpo Rinpoche Gampopa, that the terminology is used explicitly in the tantras, and that the features of the four yogas are found in the tantras exactly in that way. Most are familiar with that much. However, we should acknowledge the great kindness of the exalted Gampopa for categorizing precisely the experiences and realizations of each of the four yogas and their gradations, and for laying these out in a way that is easy to understand even for practitioners these days. The names and general characterizations of the features of the four yogas are seen from early on, since they appear in the previously cited passage from the Tantra of the Great River, the Inconceivable Secrets of Ali Kali. Also, the great Lord Atisha explains the four yogas in the instructions he gave on connate union to Gunpawa. That's the Mahamudra text by Atisha that we looked into a while ago, recently. Cynthia, remember that? There were a couple of, like Alan Wallace and James Apple had both translated that text. Interesting. And the stages of four yogas appear in the songs of the great exalted one, Milarepa. Although we find many approaches to meditation involving various types of shamatha and vipassana practices, both in earlier times and now, I have never seen in another lineage what is found in this tradition in terms of assessing experiences and realizations once they have arisen in meditation, methods for enhancement, and ways of delineating the gradations of realization. Realization. This is clearly an unexcelled special feature of the Takpo Kagya. That's an interesting statement that, like, in this tradition, there's extensive and clear presentation of the stages of accomplishment. 2. The common presentation of the rationale for the four yogas has two parts, beginning with identifying the essence of each of the four yogas, generally speaking. The topic of the four yogas appears in many esoteric instructions, such as those that the exalted Gompopa gave to the exalted Gomtso, the exalted Gomchung, and the exalted Pakmadrupa, the instructions of the exalted Zhang, who was a student of the exalted Gomso, and those of the exalted Tsongpa Gyare, a student of the Mahasiddhaling Rinpa, and his students. That's a lot of exalteds. I will explain the four yogas referring to the thought of those instructions while primarily relying on the instructions of the exalted Gompas, elder and younger, Gomso and Gomchung. That's funny, the Gompas. First, the identification of the essence of each of the four yogas. Overviews are given by the exalted Gomchung. Chung means smaller. Vivid stillness is one-pointedness. Severing misinterpretations is freedom from elaborations. The absence of something to be abandoned or adopted is one taste. The purification of experience is non-meditation. And by the exalted Gampopa, the instantaneous, lucid, unimpeded mind is the yoga of one-pointedness. The realization that the essence of awareness is unborn and beyond existence or non-existence is the yoga of freedom from elaborations. The realization that although there are various appearances, they are of the same nature is the yoga of the one taste of the many. The realization that the inseparability of appearances and emptiness is unceasing is the great meditative equipoise. Next are summaries of the descriptions given in the many presentations. One-pointedness, it is the vivid, vibrant, crisp, resting in a state of empty clarity with the awareness that the mind's stillness and movements are commingled. So the mind has these two aspects, stillness and movements, and those are commingled. Normally we think that when there's movement, there's no stillness, and when there's stillness, there's no movement, but he's implying something different, isn't he? It is this like space in being without middle or edge. The exalted Pakmadrupa teaches. First, when one-pointedness arises in your mind stream, there is vibrancy and crispness beyond words. Like open spaces, it is clear without any materiality. The exalted Zhang says, when the yoga of one-pointedness arises, you realize the nature of your own mind. Which is very interesting, because normally we affiliate that realization with Vipassana, whereas one-pointedness is often affiliated with shamatha. But he has not mentioned that. He has not affiliated one-pointedness with shamatha or Vipassana, has he? No. Resting in unceasing empty clarity, vibrant and crisp, without center or edge, like the middle of clear open space, is the meditative equipoise of the first yoga. And that stanza there is the source for the title of Karl Brunholzl's book, The Center of the Sunlit Sky, right? Secondly, freedom from elaborations. Once we are liberated from the conceptual elaborations of the characterization process. And the characterization process is a process of using characteristics as reference points, right? And taking percepts and perceivers, or external and internal phenomena, to arise, abide, and cease. Once we are liberated from those conceptual elaborations, we cut through our misinterpretations about the unborn emptiness of everything. So we talk about the unborn emptiness of everything, but we have misconceptions about it, misinterpretations, because we think that it's something, mostly, right? The exalted Pakmadrupa comments, next, freedom from elaborations arises. The holy ones call it seeing the essence. Although it is explained that when the essence free from elaborations, the expanse of samsara and nirvana is realized, one is a Buddha, and when not realized, one is a sentient being. There is nothing other than a single essence, free from elaborations. although. Okay.
So, can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Am I, does the last line basically mean that the prior line is not really true? That there's no distinction of this Buddha ascension being thing?
It does.
Okay, I just,
That's how I understand it. I
yeah.
don't see how else. Thank you for clarifying that, bringing that out. Free from the extremes of permanence or annihilation and the elaborations of birth and cessation, there is no duality of things to be adopted and things to be rejected. Everything external and internal are devoid of the extremes of elaborations and are the middle path. Here we have adopted and rejected. Whereas earlier, there was a quote by somebody that affiliated adoption and rejection with the yoga of non-meditation. The exalted Zhang explains, when the yoga of freedom from elaborations arises, you realize the essence of your own mind. It is uninterrupted awareness, free from elaborations. Your mind, which is without arising or cessation, with nothing to adopt or reject, abides as the Dharmakaya. That is the meditative equipoise of the second yoga. Even though in the first yoga we realize the nature of our mind, now we abide, our mind abides in Dharmakaya, I guess. Here we have you realize the essence of your own mind. Earlier in the page before, Zhang said, when the yoga of one pointedness arises, you realize the nature of your own mind. Now he says, you realize the essence of your own mind. Okay, a slight difference. One taste. This is when the phenomena of samsara and nirvana, all appearances and possibilities are equal in the intrinsic state. There is no negating or confirming, abandoning or adopting related to phenomena, being empty or not empty, being free or not free from the elaborations of arising or cessation. The exalted Padma-drupa explains, meditating in that way, the one taste of the many will arise. The various appearances and non-appearances, mind and emptiness, being empty and not empty, are of one taste, indivisible emptiness. Realization or no realization are of one taste. There's no equipoise in post-meditative attainment. So this is the idea, that's the main thrust of one taste, is that there's no difference between the experience in meditative equipoise and in post-meditative attainment, which, as we know now, is not the same as what we normally call post-meditation. Meditation and no meditation are of one taste, a sphere of purity. Elaborations and freedom from elaborations are of one taste, the Dharmadhatu. The exalted Zhang says, when the yoga of one taste arises, you realize the characteristic of your own mind. The third, I was wondering if that was going to happen, right? So we have the nature, the essence, and the characteristic of your mind. That's cool. I wonder what he'll do for the fourth. You realize that from your own mind, the Dharmakaya, free from elaborations, the profusion of samsara and nirvana appears. This is because the whole array of thought and no thought appearances, no appearances resting and no resting, empty and not empty, clarity and no clarity is of one taste in the Dharmakaya, luminosity. Non-meditation, once the stains of all our previous meditative experiences are purified, path realizations mix with the natural abiding state, and there is neither meditative equipoise and post-meditative attainment, nor mindfulness and distraction. The exalted Padma-drupa teaches, having become familiar with that, the ultimate manifests. Awareness is stripped to its singularity with no support. That's a cool phrase. I'm not quite sure what it means. Awareness is stripped to its singularity. What is the singularity with no support?
That could be the absence of meditation and meditator.
Singularity.
The singular
Oneness.
part,
Yeah.
non-duality.
Yeah, non-duality. As opposed to something having to do with Al. or A1 sauce. This awareness, free from elaborations, is meditation. Since there's no object of meditation or meditator observed, externally or internally, the mind that is the object of meditation. He just said there was no object. The mind that is the object of meditation dissolves into luminosity. That is the incomparable essential nature transcending the intellect. That's a difficult one. Since there's no object of meditation, mind that is the object dissolves into luminosity. How could mind dissolve into luminosity? Isn't mind already luminosity? He's being figurative speaking. Wrong.
Is he talking about conceptual mind?
Possibly.
This
I,
is like this is like change of state.
I,
Totally.
it would be our concept of mind.
Yeah.
This,
Yes. And mind doesn't change, right?
yeah, this is change of state. What he's
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah. Like moving from New Jersey to New York or something.
Mm.
That would be a happy day, huh? The exalted Zhang elaborates, when the yoga of non-meditation arises, the essence of awareness is devoid of support. Yogins and yoginis have nothing to meditate upon. There is no meditator either. All is openness. So he went through nature, essence, and characteristic, and then when the essence of yoga, when the yoga of non-meditation arises, the essence of awareness is devoid of support. There's no realization. Each one of the others has had realization.
Well, it may be that the fourth, I mean, if he's talking about the three aspects, then there isn't a fourth.
Right.
So it may be there is nothing to find there
Yeah.
for the fourth.
You will know that the saying Buddhahood with its 3 kayas and 5 wisdoms is complete within yourself. Sorry. From now on applies to you. You.
Who's that you?
Yeah, who is that you? I thought there was no me or you. From now on applies to you. I'm talking to you. Since it seems that the many descriptions found in the practice lineage identifying the 4 yogas are mostly in agreement. Mostly. I will not elaborate more. But then he goes to describe them in depth. And that's the last sentence of today's reading assignment. The distinctive features on the next page has 8 parts. So we'll pause there. And any comments about the 4 yogas? Like, anyone care to say which yoga they're on? Which of the 4?
As soon as I figure it all out, I'll tell you.
Deal. Send us a postcard from the edge. Yeah, we got to find out the Sanskrit for understanding, experience, and realization. Experience, yam. Yam has like a pejorative sense, somewhat, right? Only in Trump Rinpoche's world, he gave it a diss.
Yeah, I think we grew up with a kind of a narrow
Yeah.
understanding of it, and the reality is much broader than that.
Understanding Togpa, but how could Togpa be realization? That's weird. We have to come to the bottom of this. Talk to Elizabeth about this. Any final comments? Mary Beth? You like my glasses?
I said, no, my glasses are just falling down.
Oh, that's what you were
I
saying.
wasn't waving my hand. I was just like constantly pushing them back.
Yeah. Somebody invented something to stop that from happening. It's called the optigraph, right?
I mean, I think there was a bad outcome from that, wasn't there?
There was a negative outcome, yeah. That turned out not to be a very good invention. It seems like Chris and Mary Beth and I know what we're talking about
But it
now.
was a good movie though.
It was a very good movie. That's a hint. Anyone else?
I was that from a movie. I remember that, like, but what was the movie? I don't remember the movie.
Don't tell them yet. Anyone else remember? How about the drink with the umbrella? Um, he's shooting the cans. Somebody. He's. Let's see. What else was in that movie? Um, I was born a small black child, but I can't say the rest of it.
That's the giveaway right there.
It is. It is. If you don't know that line, I was born a small black child.
I mean, I think it had something to do with people fixating on that device and then their eyes got stuck that way. Wasn't that kind of,
That was
Yeah.
the downfall of it, yeah. And yeah, he lost everything. Anyway, we're talking about a movie by Steve Martin called The Jerk.
I think I must have missed that one.
Oh, it's a great movie. Priceless movie. Anyway, why don't we dedicate the Maryland close early for once in a million years? The entire history of Rime Shadra. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara. May I free all beings by the confidence of the golden sun of the great east. May the lotus garden of the Regent's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thank you, everyone. Great to see you.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good evening and a good week, and see you again soon.